Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we've got another deck profile post Dune. This is a really cool set. It's got a lot of really cool pieces of specifically legacy support, in my opinion, is like the coolest stuff in the set for sure. One of those really cool legacy supports is Unchained. We've been waiting for this for years, and man, they really came through. Specifically, the Link 2 and the new main deck monster Shavara are awesome for the deck, and I cannot wait to show you my build here. It's really cool stuff. This is a super pure Unchained build here, so don't expect something too spicy, but I still want to go over the deck and I still want to talk about it before I get to some of the more spicier builds, taking advantage of the new Unchained cards that we'll get to later. So yeah, let's just get into this thing. Starting off, of course, with our Unchained lineup, you have Aruha. This is probably my favorite of the small three. Sarama's really good post turn one, or your turn one, but turn one, it's just okay, but Aruha is really good. It's an extender. It gets a pop on one of your cards, which usually gets you another monster. It's a really, really good extender for the deck for sure. From there, we move to the next one, which is Rakia. This one gives you the ability to quick effect pop any of your cards, which again, popping your own cards gets you more bodies on field, more ability to combo, which is really good as well. In a pure version, I think this one's a 3 of. In a non-pure version, I would definitely look to cut this to at least 2. And I think there's even maybe a world where it could be 1, depending on the exact build you're running. But 3 for the pure, I think is still pretty good because you don't have many normal summons. Speaking of which, Sarama. 2 Sarama, he's cool. He's still really good. Like I said, post turn 1, he's amazing. Sometimes turn 1, he can still be good, but he's not consistently great turn 1 to really want to max him out at 3, in my opinion. That's just my feel on him at the moment. But he's still pretty good. And honestly, the one thing that I definitely would not hate for the deck is an actual good, like, Unchained normal summon that, like, gets you really good value. Like almost even something that was like, if when this card's normal summon, special summon an Unchained monster from your hand, deck, or graveyard, and then destroy one card you control would actually be insane. And it would give the deck like a 1-card play at least, which is cool, that they don't have right now. Okay, but let's get into the new stuff. Starting off here, we have Unchained Soul of Shavara. This card is so cool. Does a couple different things. The first one is that it's a quick effect from hand to target any fiend monster you control or face down card you control, destroy it, and then special summon himself. So he's a really good extender that also can help you dodge things at times. Stuff like Sarama's effect is really strong, so people are going to try to negate this. If it's a targeting negation, you can just like chain Shavara to dodge, and then you still get to trigger Sarama to summon from deck. Very, very strong. Also, when this card is generically just sent to graveyard, it'll go ahead and set any Unchained spell or trap straight from the deck. So it's a good extender that then when it's used, gets you another free card. This is quite an amazing card for the deck, I'm not gonna lie. Also keep in mind it's level 6. The other new card is Shiyama. Actually, we'll show off the one-ofs here. I'm just playing 1, 1, and 1 for these. I've seen some people mess around with 2 Abominable, but I'm just messing with the 1 right now. I think you can rotate it fairly easily, so I'm not gonna gripe about that too much. Shiyama's just a pretty good extender. It gives you extra versatility to be able to pop spells and traps. Mainly, its main thing is if it's engraved, it can just pop any fiend or face down card you control to summon itself, and that usually triggers something else. So it's a good extender. Plus, it also is a level 6. Keep that in mind when we get later on in the deck. These guys are great. Well, Disaster sucks to draw, but you still want to play him because in the grind, he's just so good to help you get another board monster off the board. That's what this deck loves to do. And Abominable is just awesome because you can search him on the opponent's turn, you can search him on your turn, set him up, and then it's just an extra layer essentially of hand trappedness that your opponent has to worry about. So I'm playing a smaller count than most people do for their pure builds. I think this is actually 13. Maybe it's 14. Let me make sure. 3, 6, 7, 8 plus 6. Yeah, it actually is 14, which is totally cool with. 14 feels about right. I think I was messing around with 2 Rakia when it was 13 before, but now I'm up to 14. From there, we move to some hand traps. Nothing crazy here. Obviously, you guys know hand traps kind of go back and forth between formats, but of course, I'm on 3 Ash. It's Ash. There's nothing much to say there. I'm also on 3 Droll. This one is one that I also think has like interesting synergy with this deck in this sense, and it's pretty simple. This deck is pretty good at going second. This is actually a build that's designed to go first totally fine, but it's a deck that just inherently has mechanics that allow it to go second. Stuff like being able to just go battle phase and attack with any of the small ones, and then they can just summon from deck and kind of like it just gets you going with your engine. And so the idea is no deck is amazing breaking insane boards. But there are a good amount of decks that are decent at breaking middling boards, mediocre boards, just okay boards. And this is definitely one of those decks. So by playing Droll and Lockbird, you're able to kind of seal in the ceiling of most decks in the format, which means at best they end on just a decent board in which this deck inherently is able to handle decently well. So this is a good just like ceiling capping card. Keep your opponent at this level at best, but not going to let them get all the way to their ceiling. And so I think it's pretty good for that purpose. All right, into the spells, triple Abomination's Prison. This card is incredible. It searches any Unchained card, and then if it's destroyed while it's set, it specials an Unchained from deck. Such an amazing card. Drawing 2 is not bad. I love Rhodas that you can see in multiple and be happy about it, for sure. Moving on, we have triple copies of Prosperity. This card is just kind of a necessary evil. You still, like, this is like, if you don't play this, then like you probably have to maybe max out on Sarama, max out on maybe play the second Abominable Unchained Soul, and just play more Unchained cards. But because I'm able to play this, I'm able to just like not have to worry about bumping up ratios because this card can find me stuff. Just be careful. You do use the extra deck more than you used to in this version because the engine is a little more pushed. You do want to get to the extra deck, but just keep that in mind. But yeah, Prosperity is still a good consistency card there. Then for some defensive options, Dark Hole, really cool card for the deck because not only can you wipe your opponent's stuff, but sometimes it actually behooves you to actually normal summon like your own Unchained monster and destroy it yourself, just so you can trigger it to get one of your better engine guys just straight out of the deck. Stuff like Sarama, right? And then Sarama just lets you rotate into a ton more resources. So I like that dual utility of this card. That's why people have like historically messed around with like a kaiju package. You can play Slumber, same thing, wipe your own monsters to like have a follow-up kaiju. Kaijus are decent going second anyway. But this card, doesn't force you to play the kaijus. I didn't want to play too many like hard going second cards. But enough where like Prosperity can dig for this. It's a board breaker going second, so if you do draw it, it can like help you break a board going second, but we do still like going first in this version, so I felt like that was a good option. And the rest of these spell slots here are 2 Book of Moon and 1 Harpy's Feather Duster. Book of Moon is just solid. It's just it's just like a flexible card, this format. I've shown this in a couple of other deck profiles already. I just think it's a good card overall. There's an argument that it's not great right now because theoretically Cash should be one of the best decks in the format, but I think a lot of people are shying away from it just with the prospect that it's going to be hit on the ban list before we actually get like events started up here again anytime soon. And so like that would be the main reason to play this card, but the other decks don't lose to it quite as hard, specifically like Branded and not Runic, but Labyrinth. Like they don't care too much about this card. But still, I still think it, like going first, it's good. Going second, it's solid. It's just always doing something for the most part. Harpy's Feather Duster also, this is a deck that does not love back row decks. So stuff like Labyrinth can be a huge pain for this deck. So Duster is just that one of that can potentially just blow your opponent out. You could play the 3rd Dark Hole if you want, or the 3rd Book of Moon, but I'm messing around with that. Then into the traps, pretty simple. Triple Escape, this card is amazing. Targets 1 Unchained monster you control, 1 card your opponent controls, destroys them both. Also, if it's set and destroyed, it summons an Unchained from deck. It's really good. No complaints there. Triple Chamber, this card is just called the Haunted for an Unchained monster, but it's not a continuous, so it doesn't have that restriction of like if it's removed, you send the monster it's equipped to or anything. Plus, if it's set and destroyed, it summons an Unchained from deck. Really good card as well, especially in a going first build. I can understand in a going second build not wanting to max out on this, but I think in this version, 3 is totally fine. And lastly, Triple Imperm. Nothing crazy there. We're playing a good amount of defensive slots in this version. I think that's one of the benefits of playing a pure version, because if you play a non-pure version, you're going to have to start messing around with, other engines, and space gets tighter. So just be wary of that. This is really like your lineup here. You've got your 9 hand traps plus like your 5 kind of boardish breaker cards, which is kind of cool. So 14 different slots to kind of help you go second, plus of course prosperity digging for them is pretty nice as well. So there's 40 in the main, nothing crazy there. I felt like that's a fairly standard main deck list, but obviously let me know if you have any suggestions in the comments below, which takes us to our extra here, starting off with our new link to Soul King Yama. This card is awesome. On summon, it searches you any Unchained monster, and then from grave, if anything is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, or if, I think it's card effect specifically, then you can banish this card to, wait, hold on. Oh, actually, you can trigger it yourself. It doesn't have to be by your opponent's effects, of course. We're talking about Unchained here. You banish it, and then it summons back any fiend from grave. It's a really good follow-up that you can kind of like guarantee consistently. Triple Rage, this is kind of your grind, is like make this card every single turn. That way when your opponent tries to play, you have the ability to link off with their monster super easily. Really, really good. 1 Muckraker and 1 Phoenix rounding out the link 2s. Muckraker is really good at just like Reborn, really strong link 2s and stuff. Stuff like Rage that's already engraved. Like, why take 2 monsters into another Rage when you could just make Muckraker revive Rage, which gives you another body on field. It gives you extra protection, and it's pretty good. And then Phoenix. The deck sometimes has access to like monster removal, but not backer removal, so I thought Phoenix was kind of cool. Plus you can kind of co-link it decently easy in the deck. Anguish, 2 copies of Anguish and Unicorn for the link 3s. Normally when you link off with Rage and an opponent's monster, you're going into Anguish because you usually have Escape set. But even if you don't, you can just make Unicorn and like spin something else back into the deck. So, you know, can still be a good interruption. I think this is a good ratio. I don't think you need 3 Anguish, but 2 Anguish definitely feels right. And then for the other boss monsters, 1 Unchained Abomination, 1 Nightmare Griffin, and 1 Underworld Goddess. All 3 are fiends, so you never lock yourself out of them. Abomination is just really good. It's how you seal up games a lot of the time if you don't have enough damage to kill. Sometimes you just make this guy and just make sure they have literally no resources left on field, which can be very nice. Griffin, just to reset a spell or trap, and then also provide you a potential floodgate to help like win the duel. And then Underworld Goddess, giving a deck that has pretty rudimentary removal for the most part, mostly just destruction based removal, but and then like Rage, giving them like a towers out if you ever need it, can be pretty crucial. Plus it's also a fiend, so not getting locked out there. And the last 2 cards, of course, the only card, of course I'm missing 1 card for the list, and it's a pretty crucial one. This is, I believe his name is DDD Wave High King Caesar. He's pretty much a DDD monster that can negate the activation of a card that has the effect to special summon a monster. It's like Rule Kalos, but it's not once per turn. It's just how many materials. So usually it's a 6. It's a rank 6, so you're making it with your 2 new level 6 guys, your Shiyama and your Shavara. And it's essentially 2 negates of effects that would like special summon a monster via card effect. It's still pretty good, especially when you combine it with like some of the other stuff that Unchained is able to do. I definitely recommend playing this card because there are some end boards where like this card is the difference. And then this guy, just because you can slap him on top of this sometimes, depending on the matchup, if you know they don't activate effects that like would summon a monster, you're like, actually, let me just get Deuce Machina next because that's just a better interruption here anyway. He's still 2 interruptions on his own, and he's also a big boy. He's 3K, so that can definitely come up in a deck like Unchained as well. Plus using Shiyama as material means it's not going to get banished when it leaves the field. That's actually one of his stipulations when he summons himself using his effect. So that's kind of a cool way to make use of him there to kind of guarantee he's extra follow-up on the next turn. But yeah, that's pretty much what the deck is. It's a really cool mid-range deck that like I think can go first or second now, which I think is one of the bigger things. You didn't see this deck go first all that often before. It more often was a going second strategy, and now I think it's as competent as ever going first. The only thing I would really ask for at this point for the deck is honestly like a good normal summon, but you could also play like a tour guide package. I've seen people mess around with like the Evil Twin stuff. I've heard people mention Evil Eye, although I think that's like maybe more of like an all Evil Eye deck with a small Unchained engine. Same thing with Labyrinth, I think. Feels similar. But yeah, there definitely are some cool things you can definitely mess around with there. But yeah, those are my overall thoughts on the deck. I think it's a really cool deck. I think it's really fun. I definitely think this deck kind of sits in probably this tier 2 realm. I think this deck still has some inherent weaknesses in the fact that all of the deck like kind of floats on destruction. So if your opponent has good, like a deck that has really good access to of removal that is not destruction based like consistently, that can be a problem. But I also think there are going to be matchups of decks that just straight up can't do that. They have to, like, they are a deck that relies on going battle phase and running over stuff, which plays to your strengths so much. So it really depends on the matchup, but I really do think this deck could have some legs here, especially as a high tier rogue deck. I don't know about top tier because I think it is just a little bit too matchup dependent, but overall it's in a really solid spot. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Unchained. Just the pure build here to start. I'll definitely give you guys an update on some of the other cool variations because I do think this engine fits really nicely into a couple of other decks. And yeah, that's everything I have today, guys. Thank you so much for watching as always. Let me know your thoughts down below on this deck and your ideas here, what you like about my build, what you'd change about my build. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. This is obviously super early into the format and stuff can obviously change, but I want to hear any opinions and insight you guys might have. I'm just one duelist here. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Peace.